Okay guys, Marcus here. I'm just going to show you a quick video that explains how I set this all up. I've got it in a 3-ring binder, but it doesn't have to be. I was actually picturing like one of those paper binders with the little bend over tabs. But basically what this does is it kind of gives a standard format for the prosecutor's office so that when they're receiving our request for truancy intervention with a probation officer, that they're not having to decipher site by site how each site does it, but it still offers flexibility. So you kind of open it up. There's an introduction, pages, kind of tells you about the law, and it's divided into a couple different sections: pre-truancy, stage 1, stage 2, and then court intervention. Pre-truancy is very, very short. This is just what you're doing through the identification process. There's a little bit of directions right here. It tells you what to look for. When you send your warning letter, you pull this page out and stick that in. And then when you're ready to put them on stage 1, you've got a short little checklist. You've got your warning letter, you've got your binder, which is this created for the kid, and then any other related documents, you sign it and you can proceed with stage 1. Would need a binder for every student. Once again, does not have to be 3-ring, but just this is how I set this one up, my prototype. And again, the idea is that most of what we're going to do is the same. It's just that we need to collect this documentation to give to the prosecutor before Heather Prevo and Dave Stiller's office did that for us. So now we'll be doing that. Stage 1, same format. You've got an introduction here. The biggest thing on stage 1 is the weekly communication, or as they call it, educational counseling, because we're required by law to offer educational counseling, so I renamed that. So it's got the directions. When you do it, you're either going to see improved attendance or ongoing attendance problems. It'll go in one of those two directions. You stick their notification letter here, so you pull that page out, replace it with a letter. And then you come up with a truancy plan for junior. Name, administrator, parent, anyone else who attends. You try to figure out why. Use the 5 whys. What is the root cause to your attendance issue? Supports put in place in the action plan. What are their goals for the year? How many absences? How do they want to improve things? And then who they select for their educational counselor for the weekly meetings. Sign it. Here's the logs. Very similar to what we had before, but I made some changes just based on my own personal experience. You got the student name and grade, who contacted them, what came out of it. And then I just always wrote this, but I wanted some boxes. How many classes are they failing today? How many tardies do they have today? Cut classes, absences. Do they have any missing assignments? Did they call home? Did you print out any missing work? And then you sign. So keeping those. If you have to warn them that they're going to stage 2, that letter goes here. If you're going to stop services because their attendance has improved, you pull this out and put that letter there. Or if you're going to stage 2, you just pull this out and throw it away. And then, depending on what you do, there's 2 checklists. The first checklist is to cease services. Make sure you've got all this. Make sure you've got all this. Sign it. Drop it in the CA60 just to keep you organized. Or you can throw that one away. And if you're proceeding to stage 2, it's pretty much the same checklist. Sign it. Just make sure everything's here. We don't want people going to stage 2 if they haven't documented what they need for stage 1. So stage 2 should look familiar. You have an introduction. You're either going to see improved attendance or ongoing problems. Some things you need to be aware of for that. Put your stage 2 notification letter here. Then you make a stage 2 plan, similar to stage 1. But you can come up with different strategies. And the biggest thing with stage 2 is it has to be community resource involvement. So they're either taking the class, and I'm figuring that out right now, they're getting a referral to 3rd level or to Pine Rest or maybe Catholic Human Services or something else, but you're making and documenting an effort to connect them with a third-party community agency for support. That's something that we have to have in place before we turn it over to the prosecutor. Doesn't necessarily mean that they did it, but it means that we tried and we've got documentation to support that. So put the plan in place. This is the intervention class. We could talk more about this in person, but just suffice for this video, there will be a monthly class. So you sign up the student and their parent, they're scheduled to attend, and then if they absolutely refuse, you check this off because you're trying, but you're documenting. And then when you're doing those weekly contacts, when junior takes the class, he'll get a certificate of completion. You pull this out and discard it. So that way you've either got documentation of how many times you've tried to schedule them, or you've got a certificate. Either way, you've got documentation, which is what the prosecutor likes to see. If you're referring them to a community agency like Pine Rest, you put that letter here. And these letters should be in Power School. I'm working to write them right now. Some of them already exist. But what they're suggesting at the courts is that in this letter, it says you've got 10 days. We have faxed a referral to Third Level Crisis Center. You're getting 3 counseling sessions. You've got 10 days to schedule those. Not attend them, but to at least get them scheduled. So that letter goes here. This gets faxed to Third Level. Third Level will either fax it back and say that they did not complete it, or fax it back to say that they did complete it. Either way. So what I'm picturing is I'd fax this in, then hold on to it till I get the filled out one back. Same form for Pine Rest. You can throw it away if you're not using it, or for a generic one if it's somebody else. Once again, throw it away if you're not using it. Here's your educational logs, counseling, weekly contacts. If you've got a court intervention warning letter, that goes here. If you're stopping services, that goes here. When you go through your checklist, make sure you've got everything for stages 1 and 2. Drop it in the kid's CA60 if you're ceasing services. Or if you are not, if you've done everything you can and you're ready to go on to the court intervention, here's your checklist. Make sure everything is here. Because if we're turning in stuff to the prosecutor that's not complete, then they're going to get ticked off and not want to help us anymore, and that is bad. So trying to keep it consistent. And then the court intervention stage is actually the shortest. There's basically 5 things you've got to do. You've got to complete the truancy intervention form. You got to print and mail the court intervention notification letter. ENIS again is a letter, and send it first class certified mail. You fill out your final checklist, and then take all of this stuff and move it to the front. Copy the binder, put the master in the CA60, and call the police to pick it up. So this is the letter that the prosecutor wants. It's kind of the synopsis, the cover sheet, explaining everything that you've done. The kids have not responded. This is where the notification letter, we are turning you over to the prosecutor. And then this is just your last checklist to make sure everything's ready. So that's pretty much it. Now I know that at Central High School, Heidi's got some pretty cool attendance interventions she's doing. That stuff can go in here too, but just what we wanted is kind of a skeleton framework, like this is what the prosecutor can expect from us for consistency, because if they're trying to figure out on a site-by-site basis how we do our documentation, we're probably not going to get a lot of support. But if we can keep it consistent, then we will. So that's a quick 7-minute tour of the binder and how this program will work. There's a lot more to talk about, but this is my snapshot. So call me, you got questions. Thanks.